Asmongold's worst take on Final Fantasy XIV. I love the parentheses yet. Oh, that's so good. Okay, all right, let's watch it.
Why am I doing this right now? I can't believe it.
Move it up. Oh, is this me? Okay. Okay, I didn't realize this was... Oh no, he's logging in to play WoW. Oh no, he's playing Dragonflight? Oh, he's not even doing Classic. Oh no.
Don't actually have the time to play this game, so don't worry. It's not like that. It
Okay.
looks like that, but it's not like that. I just want to prove a point.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is basically not this beautiful guy here, but
Ricardo?
the other beautiful guy in this video here,
Okay.
which is called "Is Final Fantasy XIV Dying?"
Yeah. The reason why, so if Final Fantasy XIV... Oh, this is going to be really confusing.
I really feel stupid saying this because, like, I don't really play the game a lot right now.
Okay, at least he admits that.
What do I know? But
Yeah,
what would
you
get
don't
me
know.
to play the game more? What would make the game more interesting? I will tell you this. If the game had the same graphics as Final Fantasy 16, I would probably play it more.
What stupid argument? I mean, I would love to have World of Warcraft look like Cyberpunk. What argument is that?
Because a massive...
It's true. It's the way I feel. Yeah, I think the graphics for Final Fantasy XIV are washed out. They're not that good. Yeah, like that's just how I feel. Like I'm not like what? I'm not trying to make a statement with this or anything. That's just a fact. Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah.
component of the game is player interactions. And player interactions are more fulfilling and better whenever the characters look better. I think it's a big reason. Like, you know, going to like those nightclubs and those different social experiences, seeing people in town, that's like a massive fucking thing. And I do think that it's problematic that the graphics are bad. I unironically do. Like little things like chat boxes. Why do they not have chat boxes, right?
I agree on that.
There's no reason not to have that. Let me think. Besides that, I think the combat isn't very good. I think the combat is probably the weakest point of Final Fantasy XIV.
I absolutely disagree here too. Final Fantasy XIV's combat is the best MMO gameplay I ever played. I haven't played too many MMOs, to be fair. I started into Guild Wars. I played Elder Scrolls Online, at least the base game, which I guess is not comparable to what it is now. I have played Ion for quite a while.
I never played that.
I have played... What did I play? Yeah, World of Warcraft, of course. Final Fantasy XI, which had one of the worst combat systems ever. So the combat is definitely not a problem. I know the biggest problem, I think that's what he's talking about, is how lame and boring the combat is at lower levels and how...
No. Whenever I hit the interrupt button, I want it to happen immediately. I don't want there to be a 50 millisecond delay or a 100 millisecond delay. That's bad. It doesn't matter if you're level 90 or you're level 10. The day you get the interrupt, or the level that you get the interrupt, it works the exact same than whenever you're max level. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying the GCD is bad. I never said... I actually explicitly said GCD was not bad. I never said that. But to go and say that the combat is good, and it's a good thing that you press a spell and it doesn't instantly happen, you're not going to convince me that's the case. You're not going to convince me that, like, not having instant feedback from an ability is superior to having instant feedback. That's it. Like, and also, like, you have to keep in mind that Final Fantasy XIV's combat was massively improved from the original game. Because the original game's combat was awful. So I think a lot of the people look at it and they say, well, this is the way the game's combat used to be in 1.0, and it was so awful, and now it's way better, which is true. That's absolutely true. But the snappiness and the explosiveness of, like, let's say, classic WoW's combat, I think completely clears Final Fantasy XIV. And it has nothing to do with the spell rotation. Like, it doesn't matter whether you have 3 spells or 300 spells. The way that the abilities feel to press is not as satisfying as it is in, I think, Classic WoW or Lost Ark. Straight up, because they don't instantly happen. There's this weird delay to them. And I can't be the only person that sees this. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills whenever I talk to people that are big fans of Final Fantasy XIV who pretend like this is not the case.
Long it takes to develop a good combat system. Final Fantasy XIV, to be absolutely fair, this combat system, the rotations and all that stuff, look at the skills. Look at when we get the very exciting stuff here. These things make...
It's again, like, so he's caught up in the idea of rotations being the reason why I feel this way. Whereas I never complained about my rotation as a Dark Knight, even at level 60 or level 70. I thought that my rotation was totally fine. I never thought it was a bad thing. I never said, oh, this rotation is shitty or anything like that. It has nothing to do with the rotation, and it has everything to do with the fundamental feel of the combat. It's like if you go and you play... Like, you play Elden Ring, right? And then you play a Souls-like game. Like, that's not Lies of P or one of the good ones, but you play, like, one of the kind of shittier ones. Both games, you're swinging a sword like this. But one of them feels a whole fucking lot better. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the feel. I'm not talking about the spell priority or the rotation order. That has nothing to do with what I'm saying. Why would I even be talking about that? I've never been to max level. Yeah, the feedback, yeah. It's got nothing to do with that.
Sense and become relevant at level 70. So you're basically becoming the Dragoon that you're playing on an end game at level 70. So that's 20 levels to go, and you have 70 levels to get there. I think that's the big problem that Square still needs to work on.
I will actually even disagree with this. I think that classes feel totally fine. Like, I played Machinist, I played Warrior, I played Dark Knight, and I played Red Mage. I played all of them at like level 50 and also level 60, and I felt like they were completely fine. I enjoyed playing every single one of them. I actually don't think that there's a problem with low-level jobs. That's what I think. I think they're totally fine.
Have access to the real life of the dragon mechanic and phase before level 70. So he's talking about exactly the problem that I was talking about too, and I would agree on. The combat until that point, until level 70, is absolutely dull on basically every job.
Nothing.
Take a Summoner, for example. Summoner is utter trash below level 86, actually.
Yeah.
86 is when Summoner becomes...
I think that because you haven't experienced in-game rotations, to be honest. I just, like... What does an in-game rotation have to do with what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand, like, what, like, an in-game rotation, like, they don't understand. Yeah, they simply, like, are you guys not understanding, like, what I'm saying? It's got nothing to do with these spells. Yeah, the rotation is, like, it's just... you mean about low-level rotations? Well, yeah, no, I'm giving my opinion about it, right? I don't think they're problematic, and in fact, I don't even think they're bad, personally.
Interesting. Of course, you have Bahamut before that on 70, so maybe you can see level 70 as the break point for many jobs, but for me, Summoner is absolutely trash below level 86 before you have these abilities here, Crimson Strike, Crimson Cyclone, Slipstream. It's so boring without these. Absolutely. And that's my biggest problem. And I guess he's right on this topic, but he doesn't know the true picture. He hasn't got the full picture yet, and that's the problem.
There's like a yeah, again, that's just completely missing the point. Has nothing to do with it. I made it very clear multiple times in this video, and I also talked about it in follow-ups about this, that it has nothing to do with the rotation at all. It's completely irrelevant. 50 or 100 millisecond delay between every spell you cast. Okay, here we go. Like, I can tell. Like,
Thank you guys.
You play Classic WoW and you play Final Fantasy XIV, there's a fucking difference, man. There is. There's a fucking difference. And, like, nobody is going to tell me that it's the same. It is, yeah, it's based on snapshots. Yeah, it is not. It doesn't have the snappy feel that WoW does.
Okay, yeah, absolutely agree. 100%.
Okay, great. All right, so we're on the same page.
100% this is true.
So-
I agree on this. The pings and
Okay.
all the snapshot system, the reactiveness and responsiveness of the game is definitely worse in Final Fantasy than in WoW. That's the biggest problem for PvP.
It's worse in Final Fantasy. Lost Ark does it better. World of Warcraft does it better. I would say almost even New World does it better. I played the closed beta test of Blue Protocol, and I had to log in from a VPN to a Japanese server, and it was better. Tower Fantasy does it better in terms of responsiveness. Like every game does it better.
Apart from the ranking system and queue system, but on the other hand, the next part he mentions is
here we go.
absolutely wrong.
All right.
I think that the graphics are problematic, and just creating more environments for players to socialize is probably what the game should do more.
What the heck? That is okay. I actually forgot about the worst point here. The worst take. What is he talking about? Everything in WoW that people have room for interacting with each other outside, or just in the open world, or having environments like housing systems or anything like that, is player made. In Final Fantasy, you have a wedding system that the game is having developed. The game.
That's my point, right? Is because Final Fantasy has developed all of those things, and they've created a community around people that like those things and people that enjoy those things. And I think that's what's drawn the community to the game. So whenever I say Final Fantasy should do more of that, he's actually agreeing with me. And I think that WoW should borrow from Final Fantasy and also do more of it in WoW. So I don't know how, like, how do you, I don't know how you misunderstand that.
Game offers that. That's absolutely not true. The environments for players to interact with each other is splendidly available in Final Fantasy XIV. Even though people are just sitting around Limsa Lominsa, which I still don't get, but I have visited nightclubs. He has visited nightclubs. How do you do that in WoW?
You don't, and that's one of the biggest things that Final Fantasy has that's better than WoW. And I think that WoW should copy what Final Fantasy does. And I would say that anytime. I've said that hundreds of times. Final Fantasy does the player social experience 10x better than WoW. It's not even close.
It's impossible. You literally just have
right.
the inn in Goldshire where people stack together and have their add-on mates.
I've even made memes about this exact thing. I made jokes about it, stuff like that, yeah.
Roleplay texts being put on each other. So, I don't know. I actually don't know what he's referring to, but building environments, that's not making any sense here.
Okay.
Because that's what people really like doing in that game.
Well, it does make sense because I'm saying that they should do more of it. I didn't say they should do it. I said they should do more of it. Because it's already something that they were massively successful in, that he just went on a tangent explaining all of the examples of them being massively more successful in it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And like having the
and they
raids
can.
and stuff like that, like the mid-core content, like what Xeno's talking about. Yeah, I think that's equally
he is
as
Xeno, by the way.
or maybe
Sorry.
less. I don't know, right? But it's very important as well.
Yes.
Like content that's
I
like
agree.
between savage raids and like ultimates and just like doing a normal dungeon. But you can see where people, like for example, New World had a lot of people that saw like, oh wow, this game looks really cool. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
It's
Natural
actually
course of things.
before that.
This always happens, and every single fucking expansion, people are fucking flipping out about it. Like, oh no, the game's dying. I really hope they do things next expansion. Let me tell you this. If the next expansion is exactly like this expansion, it would still be a success.
Yes.
It would still be popular. People would.
Xeno's
still
right
play.
here, though.
So this game is not dying. It's not dead. It's not going anywhere, man. At the end of the day, 14, it doesn't force you to log in. Now, granted, some of these players aren't going to come back, but it is extremely new player friendly. The
Yes.
amount of new players that join.
Except the comment system. The comment system for new players. I personally
Just like I said.
have a very, very good friend, actually my best friend, that doesn't play the game for that reason.
Then how do you spend 4 minutes saying that I'm wrong?
And he would actually love the game when he could start into endgame directly. It's basically the combat system that kind of holds back many players for playing the game, because starting combat is super boring in Final Fantasy.
Versus
Are you saying he's not playing it because of starting combat? Slightly different than what I was saying, but okay.
the players that quit because they don't have anything to do. Dude, there's so many new players that play this game. They're gonna come back, man. See this dip here?
I think one of the things that makes Final Fantasy XIV unappealing is the fact that the game looks like shit.
Okay, whatever, yeah. Compared to what?
Compared to New World, compared to I would say like a lot of stuff in WoW looks pretty good. It looks worse, but it looks better in a way. So like, here's a good way that I can explain it. The animations for a lot of NPCs in Final Fantasy XIV don't match the complexity of the actual textures of the NPC. So like, a lot of times what it looks like to me is that like you have this like really highly detailed texture of like a chimera with like 3 heads, or, you know, this like horse with like a dragon coming out of it that has like spikes on it. But like it all moves as like one piece together, and it doesn't feel like it actually, like the animations and the skeletons in the game don't do the textures and the art justice. And that was my point with Final Fantasy 16, is that if you look at a chimera in Final Fantasy 16, it looks incredible. It looks amazing. And then you look at it in Final Fantasy XIV, and it doesn't look that great. And I don't think it's simply something that has to do with graphical fidelity. I think it has to do with the way that the NPCs move. It has to do with the way that they're rigged. And that's the point that I'm making. It's not just about like how many pixels the mob has on it. That's just like a very surface level understanding. It's the mob feels like it's alive in WoW. I think a lot more, because it has different types of like passive movement that it does that don't just move together, that is independent of like a texture. So, and I want to give you kind of an example, and I'll give you an example of like WoW, just so I can kind of explain myself, right? Because people might not really understand this. And I used this example last time. Cro-Magus is a boss in BWL. BWL came out in, I think, 2005. Now, the polygons on Cro-Magus are very bad, right? Like, the actual graphical fidelity of this NPC is very bad. Okay. Very low poly count. But if you look at, like, for example, like, the arms are moving around. The chains are moving around. And then, like, even the spikes on his back are moving around. The tail is moving around. It feels like it's a living, breathing animal. And it feels like the texture of this NPC fits the skeleton that it's attached to and the animation that it's attached to. And if I compare that with a lot of the like more monster-looking NPCs in Final Fantasy XIV, I don't really get that same vibe. Yeah, the claws articulate. Yeah. And that's just the way that I feel. And it's very hard. Yeah, they're stiff. Yeah, they're very stiff in Final Fantasy XIV, and I do think that matters. Give me an example of Final Fantasy XIV as well. I don't know where there's like an NPC model viewer. I'd have to log in and show it myself. NPCs that I would say are kind of like that. Like, let me just think for a minute. I think the Minotaur is kind of like that. Chimera is kind of like that. Like, those would be the first two that I could think of. Didn't you only get the Stormblood? I mean, when was Stormblood made and when was this made? Right? So, like, I don't think that's the argument you think it is. Behemoth, I see that definitely. Yeah, well, the Behemoths and the Minotaurs are... Actually, I think Minotaurs are different. Yeah, Behemoth. Yeah, it's example. That's animation, not graphics. You're right. Actually, you're right. It is animation, not graphics. I think visuals is a better way to look at it. Visuals include lighting. It includes animations. It includes texture fidelity. All of those things. It's visuals.
It
Aesthetic.
just looks like shit. It's that simple.
It's not that
You
simple.
look at New World. New World looks really nice.
Okay, I can't compare it to New World. I haven't played it. New World, to what I know, looks kind of decent. I can't tell you anything about that. But when he's comparing it to WoW and tells me that WoW looks better, that's where I'm definitely not agreeing on.
Okay.
It's not, but it looks really.
Is he gonna go through any comparisons? Yeah, he's probably about to go through a comparison. Okay, I'll wait for him to do that.
I would say, and I know this is going to be an opinion that might upset some people, I think World of Warcraft has more appealing aesthetic than Final Fantasy XIV. Even classic WoW does.
Whoa, okay, that's
I do.
wow, that's a hard take. That's really a hard take, guys.
So whenever I say that, I'm talking about like an aesthetic again, and that doesn't mean that there is higher graphical fidelity in classic WoW, because that's obviously not true. But in the same way that something like, let me think of like some old school games that have like very iconic graphics, like a Super Metroid, right? So the aesthetic feel of a lot of Super Nintendo games and like Chrono Trigger or Secret of Mana, the aesthetic feel, Wind Waker, right? The aesthetic feel of those games is, I think, like the aesthetic feel of Wind Waker, for example, I think is better than... I think it's better than Starfield. And Wind Waker was... And Starfield is infinitely more complex. It's infinitely better graphics. But the aesthetic feel of Wind Waker is superior. And that's what I'm getting at. It's better to look at. The texture quality and the polygon count is irrelevant.
And I absolutely disagree. And that's where I spend my $12 right now, or 12 euros actually, to prove the point that it's not right. So we have, this is peak WoW, right? This is 4K resolution, basically maxed out. Let me actually max it out. Maybe there's something that looks different here.
Okay.
It doesn't look bad. I'm absolutely fair here. It doesn't look bad. The details on these, when you look at them closely, it kind of looks bad, but it's not something I would actually argue negatively about. But let me
He's talking about like detail, pixel count, stuff like that. It's again not really the point. But let's look at Final Fantasy.
Try to fly around. Dude, where's my dragon here? Sorry. And he's also just throwing classic WoW into the mix. And sorry, but classic WoW does look way worse than Final Fantasy. It might...
From a visual perspective, from like a pixel count perspective, I would agree. I do think that the aesthetic of classic WoW is very timeless. I like it a lot. How do we know it's timeless? Because people still play it all the time. They love it. So it's an art style and an aesthetic, not just like a pixel count.
Might not be the art style that is appealing to everyone in Final Fantasy, but I don't know. Let me check this here. Look at this stone. This is just a generic stone. And yeah, no, we had the discussion about art style, graphical quality.
Okay, here we go.
That's definitely something I would say they kind of are even on the same playing ground, Final Fantasy and WoW.
So he agrees with me on this too. Okay.
But let me show you one thing here now.
And also, I think another reason why...
Okay, we have some of the upscale textures somehow. But if I just go into a dungeon, this is definitely one of the dungeons that looks way better. I mean, yes, it's all about the art style. You have to take that into account.
This isn't the example I would have used.
But this is looking like real environment.
I don't think it looks real. I don't.
Right?
I also don't think it looks bad. I think that the colors, like again, the art style for this is pretty good. I don't think it's that awful. This looks nice.
I mean, look at that. That looks way better and way... He's talking about art style. He loves Elden Ring, and I do agree on that. This is the most Elden Ring-like looking area that you can ever get in Final Fantasy XIV. And this had been before Elden Ring. So what the hell are you talking about, Mr. Asmongold? What the heck are you talking about? If you like the same levels and artistic details in Elden Ring that I do, this is the most Elden Ring environment that you can get in Final Fantasy XIV. You haven't reached this point because you haven't played the game to that point. That is on you. Let's now go all in, okay? Let's just go all in here. I mean, this is not even close.
Yeah, I think that looks really good. If you look at this right here, this looks really, really good. And I think this is actually more of my point, right? Is that Final Fantasy with like the right lighting and shading would look massively better. And it's disappointing that like Final Fantasy doesn't take the like the things that these mods have done and implement them into the base game. He's right about this. He is. And I think that this would make the game better. Absolutely. Because yeah, whenever I see this picture looks a lot better than what it did before. Straight up. So I think that whenever like there's such a massive disparity between the two things, doesn't that go to kind of prove my point that the original I don't think was really that great? Because I think that, yeah, you can use all of these things to punch it up, absolutely, but why doesn't Square Enix have these things in the game as a baseline? Why are you risking your account to make the game look like it fucking should? That's what I think. I agree with him. Yeah,
tell me any situation in WoW where you can make the game look like that. Tell me a situation where WoW looks like that, where your character or any character in the game can look.
I think Alexstrasza looks that good. I mean, sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of armor sets in WoW that look that good. Yeah, but it's a different art. It's a different art style. So like, yeah, I don't know. Stop. Not even close. You guys don't think so? Final Fantasy way better. Really? Bring up a picture of two of them. I'd have to show it in game because like you'd have to go like I have to log into the game and see. Okay, let's just look at this for example. I think this looks really good. Like I really do, and if you want me to be honest, I think it looks better than this does. I do. Like that's my opinion. It's not really a fair comparison. I mean, I just found the first comparison I could, right? I'm not saying, like, why even discuss this? It's about art styles. Yeah, I don't even know, like, what we're talking about right now. Because, like, really, like, yeah, you're talking about, like, an art style. And, like, I think that the Final Fantasy art style is, like, a bit more unrealism than WoW is. But, like, they're both stylized. They're close. Why are we on this? Yeah, I mean, I don't really think that's the point. Like, the point that I have is, like, I just think that the graphics could be a lot better in Final Fantasy. Like, that's really all it comes down to. I don't think they're that great.
Anywhere close as this. I mean, this is G-posing, okay? We know that. That's something you can do in WoW too, but it's not close to this. You don't have a detailed model like this in WoW.
Well, to be fair, you don't have it in Final Fantasy either. It's like multiple mods, but yeah.
It varies from person to person, absolutely. Some people don't like this. Some people favor the art style of WoW. But if someone like Asmongold that actually likes the art style of Elden Ring over many AAA games which have objectively better graphics from the details alone, this is the most Elden Ring-like area that you can venture in. And we can also get to the further points. There's one spot which I use for my Relic Showcase videos too. This one here, this looks amazing. And he can tell me that the graphical quality, amazing.
I'm going to be honest, guys. I really don't think that looks good at all. I think that looks awful. I really do. I think this looks horrible. Yeah, it looks like plastic. Like there's no like, yeah, compare that. Like, let's look at this and compare it to Bastion. Sure. I mean, guys. Yeah. I think the WoW one looks way better. I don't even think it's close. It's zoomed out. Yeah, that's different aesthetics. Show the Kyrian Covenant Hall, it's even better. Yeah, I'll do that. So if I go and I look at... Jesus. Why does it do that? Because usually that's what turns off my UI. Turn it off, yeah. So if I compare this right here, okay. Close GeForce experience. It's Alt-Z, yeah, I know. Okay, well anyway, let's go ahead and just look, right? So you compare this to this. Now, personally, I think the WoW one looks a lot better. I do. I think the WoW one looks much, much better. It's just that simple. Why are you comparing one of the best zones in WoW to a random-ass Final Fantasy XIV dungeon? Because that's the example he's using, and I'm using something that has similar architecture to that area to show the difference. If he showed something else that was different, then I would show that too. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead. I'll mute this for now. Mute that. Okay.
And he can tell me that the graphical quality...
Like, Anor Londo in Dark Souls looks better than this. Like, it's just, it's not not super great. The lighting's bad? Yeah, it's mainly the light, and I think that's like really the point that I'm making, right? Is I think that you had like, if you had different lighting and you had better shading, I think these textures would look 10 times better. Because like, I just look at the, like the edges here look really, really rough and they look super artificial. I do, like it doesn't look good to me at all.
Of an area like this and the art style. He's talking about art style too. I know you haven't reached this yet, but hey man, this is one of the most badass looking places here. With these lighting settings, for example.
Uh-huh.
And okay, we have the gameplay filter. Let's just remove that. It's even without the filters. This looks like an awesome place.
I mean, I would say the Warrior Class Order Hall. Like, I don't know, do you want me to go to the Warrior Class Order Hall? Let's see. So if you compare this versus that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the WoW one looks a lot better. I don't know what else to say.
This is awesome. And even the background looks fine, in my opinion.
I'm not seeing it.
Yes, these are not the best textures. And they could be optimized. They could be
Yeah.
enhanced. And I hope that's something they do in Dawntrail. But from the standard, what we already have, and now I definitely want something for bosses. Which boss looks very good?
And keep in mind, I don't know what zone this is and when this came out, but this area was made in the year 2016. So this is almost like 8 years old.
I absolutely agree on many takes that Asmongold has, and he has very decent opinions on many things, but this is definitely wrong. Objectively wrong. I think...
Do you guys see kind of what I'm saying about how like the textures like don't really match the animations? Like they look like they're artificial. It looks very dated, yeah. I think this is my point exactly. Right here, this is my point. And if I compare it, like if I go and I look at, you know, for example, let's see, what do we have here? Raids. Do we have a boss that's kind of like that? Sinarth, maybe? I can't really zoom in on these NPCs. I'd have to go somewhere. Zuin? Yeah, that's a good idea. I think this looks way better. I'm gonna be honest, I think it looks way, way better.
And I could go over there. I probably have the trinket on. Yeah, I'll go to Timeless Out. There's like a chance that like 1 in 4 of them spawn. So it probably won't even be him. But I'll just look and see. It will be one of them. Oh, wow, how convenient. Oops, sorry. I'm not used to having this. So this came out, also keep in mind, this came out in 2000 and... Shit, when was it? 2013? I'm gonna be honest, like, looking at both of them, I feel like they both kind of look like shit. Like, yeah, I'm gonna be real. I think that they both kind of look like shit. Yeah, this one doesn't look as good as I thought it would, like, looking up close. And, yeah, his example doesn't look like shit either. Yeah, it's better animated. Yeah.
I think Final Fantasy actually has the same problems in some textures than WoW has in some textures. And in other parts it's actually very good. I mean, look at this enemy. And the effects, the magical effects, it looks way more AAA than WoW does in some aspects.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I think both of the games look like dog shit if you want to talk about AAA effects. They're not even remotely close.
Or at least it's still holding up to the time. And animations are also fun. They're not the best, but it looks believable at least. But I guess I know what he's talking about. As most people, if you have all the markers placed...
So a good example is like, look at his hair, right? So like his hair doesn't move in like a fluid motion, and it doesn't have a fluid range of motion. It's like a few animated textures that are as at the very end, how it moves around. It looks very stiff and clunky.
And all that.
Like what I'm saying is that like, the quality of this, if you used like AAA graphics and like a single player game, would have such a higher ceiling than a lot of the WoW stuff. But just because something doesn't have a higher ceiling, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better.
Stuff. Of course combat does look stupid and bad. But if you really be fair to it and zoom in, it actually looks quite decent. Especially on the effects here, right? But yeah, anyways, I think I can find a quick resolution to the whole topic when I'm just turning down the volume. And my PC is not crashing. Yeah, Asmongold is definitely not wrong about the other parts. The combat, at least what he's actually referring to, is the early game combat. I absolutely agree on. That is definitely something Square Enix needs to improve.
Like, look at. I think this is like a really good example. So look at the way that this NPC moves around. I think this is just like incredibly stiff. Watch.
Definitely something Square Enix needs to improve on.
See how he moves around? Nothing flows. Yeah, it doesn't. It looks very bad. It looks plastic. Yeah, it does. Like an action finger, like a plastic dart. Yeah. It's weird because like some people like completely understand what I'm saying and other people like completely don't understand what I'm saying.
But the late game is awesome.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy's end game combat system is actually what makes people stick with the game, or what attracts people in high-end content. That was at least the reason for me why I started playing PvE content more seriously back in at least Shadowbringers or Stormblood, and I really loved doing PvE.
Like, you guys see like how he's moving? Like, I'm gonna go back 5 seconds. Just pay attention to the way that like his hair moves.
At least Shadowbringers or Stormblood, and I really loved doing
it. I don't know. I really don't think it looks good.
PvE there, where I have dropped PvE entirely in WoW since, yeah, after Cataclysm. I rated.
Nobody cares about the hair? Well, sure. I'm not saying that Final Fantasy is a bad game because of this. I'm not. I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying that I don't think that the animations and the rigging for these NPCs does the art justice. And I think that the disparity is large enough to where it's noticeable.
Cataclysm kinda seriously, and afterwards I never raided in WoW because I was just not attracted to the combat system. And that's something that Final Fantasy did improve on and kinda revitalized for me. And I really love the combat here, and I think it's still fine. There are some problems, maybe like a samurai that lost the chitin stuff. Yes, that's something I'm not a big fan of, but overall, I would say the combat is definitely,
Like, for example, like,
the better aspect here, and definitely.
I think that this like sequence here looks really cool, right? It definitely looks really cool. And I think that, like, this actually goes to prove kind of like what my point is, that like graphic style and like the way that things are conveyed is like way more important than like actual fidelity and stuff like that. Sure. But like that's my whole point.
Better than in, not better than in WoW, but it definitely has its value, and it's not the problem. The first and stuff.
I'll say the background, if you look at this, I don't really think this looks very good, personally. I think it's, again, like, primarily lighting and different types of, like, shading and everything on it. It's still better than WoW. I don't really think it is. Yeah, personally, I don't really think so.
In combat is the problem. The delay that he mentioned, of course,
Yeah.
that's a problem, especially for PvP.
Okay.
Because it doesn't feel snappy, and in PvP you want the game to feel snappy. That's definitely a problem.
Well, why would you? I mean, this is my perspective. Like, yeah, true, but like, I want the game to always feel snappy. Like, I like PvE. It matters as much to me as well. Like, I don't care about PvP. Like, Final Fantasy 14 PvP. Like, who does that, right? Like, it's so like I don't think that's a big deal. Like, WoW PvP. Like, who gives a shit? These are mainly PvE games.
On the other hand, I think they found a solution with the Crystalline Conflict implementation and also the new combat system they introduced at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's definitely fine. I would not have a problem with a PvP system when you could queue up together with a friend or with a pre-made party and have a duo bracket. And the graphics, it's absolutely not the problem here. Absolutely not. I would actually say overall graphic appearance and art style is a strong point of Final Fantasy. That's why I would say it's Asmongold's worst take about Final Fantasy 14. Everything else is kinda right, but this, that the graphics are trash and bad, I can't agree.
Look at that rock. Look at this mod. When did this dungeon come out? 2017. I don't know. Like, this guy's confusing art for graphics. Yeah. Do you think WoW has more graphical fidelity? I don't know about nowadays. I'd have to look at like the new the new Endwalker stuff and like compare it to like the new raid. I'm not sure.
Can't agree on. And especially when he compares that to classic WoW. We're just too passionate about these games. He's too passionate about WoW. And
well, let's go over to Maw of Souls. Do I have a teleporter to Maw of Souls, guys? I'm trying to remember if I do or not. Draenor Legion. Grand Magister. Halls of Valor is pretty close. Yeah, let's go over there. So this is a dungeon that was made at about the same time that that the dungeon that he's showing was made. So I'm going to go ahead and just run through this real quick. I've only done this dungeon about 400 times. And unfortunately, I'm not joking around. So go up, fight the boss. Let me just kill this guy. I would say, oops, I keep doing that on accident. I would say this one's actually like a very bad example
because it's so dark and there's so much like stuff in the way. Like I can't really even see into the distance in the same way that you can with the other area. Maybe like after this I'll be able to. Yeah, it's like the fog is like really bad. So I'll try and maybe do this, and then if this doesn't work, we'll maybe look at something else. Okay. Is this a video? No, this is me playing the game. If you can imagine that. So they're just chatting? Nah, who cares? Let's see. Okay. I mean, personally, this is my personal opinion, is I think this looks... I think the lighting on this looks way better. That's what I think. And I'm not also saying, like, I mean, to a certain extent, like, this is also, like, a big factor here, is that it's a matter of, like, opinion. So, like, there are going to be some people here that say that Final Fantasy is better than this. And I think that's kind of okay. It's not like you're really, I think, like, super, super wrong about that. It's just that, personally, I feel like the lighting and the texturing in WoW looks more appealing, and it feels more vibrant and more full than Final Fantasy, when in a lot of cases it seems very flat and, like, kind of lifeless. So, like, this is just how I feel looking at the game. Make the zones brighter. Oh, brightens the word. Oh, I don't even know. I've never seen that before. So that's really just the way that I feel about it. I'll go to Nighthold. Yeah, I mean, I could leave the... Yeah, I'll leave the dungeon and go over there and just kind of show you, like, an open world area. Give me a second. Let me do that. After this, I'm going to... I'm going to watch something else. Yeah, I'll show Suramar. That's what I was going to do. Oh, yeah, I forgot about these tentacles. Okay. I think the music in Final Fantasy XIV is way better, by the way. Like, and it's not even, like, remotely close either. It's just, like, infinitely better. And it's just, like, it makes WoW look like a joke. So, yeah, I mean, the music in WoW just sucks. I think the music in Diablo also sucks. Like, compare Searing Exarch music to whatever bullshit Blizzard cooked up for Uber Lilith. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah, I don't think Blizzard's very good at making, like, they're good at making music, and, like, at the same time, they're not, right? Like, they're very good at making, like, atmospheric music, but they're very bad at making impactful music. So, another thing that I think WoW has that Final Fantasy doesn't really have is that, and this is, like, maybe he can make a second video about this, and, you know, we can use that for content, too, is that I think that the fact that anywhere I see in this game, I can go wherever I want to go. There are no, like, invisible walls in this game in the same way that there are with Final Fantasy XIV in a lot of the places in WoW. Like, for example, I can get on top of that. I can get on top of this. I can get on top of that. And I can go wherever I want in the game, and I have a freedom of motion to go from zone to zone with no loading screen. And I think that that's, like, a huge element of, like, quality that WoW has that a lot of people don't even take into consideration. If you have flying mount, well, yeah, I mean, everybody has flying mount, right? So, overall, it's a subjective argument? No, it is. I just want to show, like, what my point of view is, right? So, like, there's a lot of, oh, here we go. Look at that. think this is amazing. I really do, and this came out years and years and years ago. Close my bags. I wasn't going to because I wanted to show something with the bags. I want to use this. So like you can even make it darker, and you can see like the different lights in the city and everything like that. I think it looks amazing. And I'll show one more area. I'm going to show Borealis, because I think Borealis is probably the best example of this. Yeah, and this came out, Legion, you have to remember, Legion I think came out in September 2016. So it came out a really long time ago. Yeah, I think this looks really, really, really nice. And also, I don't even think the colors in this are really that great. I think they're okay, but they're not amazing. They're like kind of like too similar.
He never really felt a part of this game. If you don't get a connection to it, I can't agree on. And especially when he compares that to classic WoW. We're just too passionate about these games. He's too passionate about WoW, and he never really felt a part of this game. If you don't get a connection to it, I guess you might never get the connection. At least when you have played through Heaven's Ward and you still don't have that connection. That's all I can tell you about this.
I think it's just, again, okay, so honestly, I find it kind of ironic that the video is called Asmongold's Worst Take, and he agrees with most of the things that I say. And whenever I say that the quality of the graphics are bad, he's like showing examples of, in my opinion, stuff that I don't really think looks that great. Like, I really don't. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think that the WoW visuals are more stylized, and they have better lighting and better shading, and that makes them look better. I think that if Final Fantasy had the quality of shading that WoW did, he could probably make an argument that Final Fantasy's graphics are better, but it doesn't, unless you download mods that you can get banned for. So it's like, what the fuck? Particle effects, I think they're about even, all things considered. And I also don't have anything really negative to say about Final Fantasy overall. I just think that the graphics could be a lot better. And I think that the delay in the combat, he said his friend doesn't play the game because of the combat. I think the delays are problematic. I think they're not good. And I don't know why this is some kind of a big issue, right? And it's not about the early game combat. It's about the delay and the like lag and snapshotting of the abilities. It has nothing to do with the GCD. I think the GCD is totally fine. It has to do with like just like the fundamental movement on like the characters. WoW zones have no real light source. How does it have better lighting? I mean, we just looked at it, right? You can scroll back into VOD. So, Japanese guys talking about their favorite game, and it's never going to be a conclusion because it's dumb to argue taste and graphics. I mean, I don't really like. I don't know. I don't know if this is all just like complete taste or not. I'm not sure. Obviously, like to an extent, there's always going to be like a personal opinion that goes into it. But like, yeah, I personally think that a lot of the WoW graphics are. I think that they're not very good, but they have a style to them that's appealing, if that makes sense. The delays are an inherent design in the game. Okay, then I don't like the inherent design. Just because something is designed in a certain way doesn't mean that I have to like it, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that are designed with a game, but like that's about it. Oh, there's a video right there. It's subjective. Yeah, and like that's the thing, right? Combat's slow for console players. I'm not sure about that. I think it depends. Figuring ground is not telegraphed. It's artificial. Personally, I thought it was terrible. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd be curious to hear, like, obviously this will probably go on YouTube. I'd be curious to hear what people's, like, opinions on this are, besides, like, my own. Because, like, personally, I think that Final Fantasy 14, like, they have like really amazing graphical sequences, and I don't think that has anything to do with the fidelity at all. And I think that honestly, that's more of the point that I was making. I agreed retail while looks good is mostly disagreeing that the opinion that classic graphics being better. I mean, again, it's like Wind Waker to like a newer game, right? It's the style. I like the style more. Is this argument is the same level as console war arguments? Well, no, I don't really think so, because like I'm not trying to shit on Final Fantasy. I want Final Fantasy to be better. Like, console war arguments are like they want the other console to fail. Like, I don't want Final Fantasy to fail. Like, I'm saying like these are the things that I'm not a fan of with like the graphics, and I wish that the graphics did this better. Right? I mean, I don't hate the game. I don't think it's a bad game or anything like that. I'm just saying like this is a part of the game that I wish was improved. Like, I don't know, like, I don't think this is a bad take. It's not insane. This is just the way I feel about it. It's not all about you, though, is it? Well, what do you mean? Well, yeah, it is for me, right? So, like, my life is all about me, and my preferences are all about me. So, whenever I express my preference for what I like in the game, it is going to actually be all about me because it's my preference. Are you stupid? What are you talking about? What a ridiculous thing to say. And also, like, by the way, I don't think anybody's actually disagreeing with what I'm saying. People are only disagreeing with the fact that I said WoW was better. I think that if you ask somebody to actually look at these graphics and say, does this look that great? They'd probably say, no, not really. Which is, I think, kind of funny. Because even whenever I'm saying, like, the problem is, like, the frame of reference to WoW. Because I think if you objectively look at this, you could say, well, this could be way better. It's because look 1,000 times better. That's it. Whether it's better or worse than WoW is kind of irrelevant.